everybody. My name is Marc Bernardin. This is the inaugural episode of Blackman Beyond. We're at Scum and Villainy Cantina. Let the people at home know where you are. Hey, so this is a little weird. Kevin, as he's wont to do, is in Vancouver directing an episode of Supergirl, so I decided, why let everybody not get together on a Tuesday night in October? Oh, you're welcome. It's like my fresh air fund for nerds, but inside instead of outside, because nobody needs the fucking sun. So yeah, we're going to talk today almost exclusively about Castle Rock. Castle Rock! But first, I got to talk about this fucking thing. Look at that. Have you seen this? This is going to be my portrait of Dorian Gray that I keep in the closet so I can kill people and never get older. Nate, thank you very much for putting this together. You're an awesome, awesome dude. So the way this night's going to work is I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got to Castle Rock. Then the great and mindy Roth Cornet from Screen Junkies is going to come up here and talk to me about Castle Rock. And then you guys get a chance to talk about Castle Rock, whether I'm here or not. But I'm here, so ask a question or two. So yeah, I'm going to tell you how I got to Castle Rock. I worked for Entertainment Weekly from 1996 to 2009. And when I was there, for about a year and a half, I had an assistant. The guy's name was Scott Brown. He was the worst assistant I've ever had. He could not keep a calendar. He had no idea what to do with receipts. He had no idea how to transfer a phone call. All of the things one would use to measure an assistant, he failed miserably at. The one thing he was really good at was writing. And it was abundantly clear that, he was going to be a fucking rock star. And my time there would be commemorated by, he hired Scott Brown once. Because Scott Brown then went to be the theater critic at New York Magazine. He then went to be a staff writer on Manhattan. From there, he went to be a staff writer on Sharp Objects. And now he's writing, or has written, the book for the Broadway musical Beetlejuice. I know, right? A fucking dude who answered my phones is now gonna win a Tony in 2 years. He also went to Harvard, which tickled me to no end, because I went to a community college in New York, and I was like, I hired a Harvard boy. This lovely young white boy to answer my phones. He went to Harvard, It tickled the shit out of me. But he's an awesome guy. And if you're a writer, part of the way you get better as a writer is by getting a group of people you can trust to be your first readers, right? It's I wrote a draft of a thing. I need to have somebody who I can trust read it and give me some notes on it. And Scott was one of those guys for me. Really early on, I would write pilots, I would write movies, or whatever I fucking wrote. I would slip a draft to Scott and say, hey, how do I make this better? And he would tell me. And flash forward, he left in 2006, and I left EW 2009. Flash forward to the winter of 2016, where we had still had that relationship. He'd write a thing and send it to me. I'd write something and send it to him. He was then, he calls me and he's like, hey, so what's your latest script? It's you read it, you know what it is. He's like, is it in good shape? It's you read it, you know where it is. And he said, send it to me, because I'm working on this show. The guys who did Manhattan, the Sam Shaw and Dusty Thomason, are putting together a Stephen King show. And they desperately, desperately need a nerd. And they don't know any nerds. These are dudes who, went to Harvard, and dudes who went to, the Iowa Writers Workshop, and dudes who were, all about short stories, and did not really know what to do with Stephen King, with genre, with horror. They knew character and plot and theme and all of that shit. But they needed somebody who could tell them, hey, you know what needs to happen here? You need to kill some motherfuckers. Maybe we don't not kill some motherfuckers in this show about horror. And so Scott took my latest pilot script, he slipped it to them. This was November of 2016, and I hear nothing, which is par for the course in Hollywood, but also fucking petrifying when you do the here's the thing I'm most proudest of, take a look at it, maybe let me know what you think, and then when they don't, fuck, all right. I guess I'll just keep pretending to be a writer, I suppose. But then I got a call in December, just before Christmas, saying, hey, can you be at Bad Robot at 2 o'clock this afternoon? And I said yes. And then I went to my bosses, I was working at the LA Times at the time, and said, I have a dentist appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m. And I'm kind of going to be gone all day because it's fucking dentist. So don't look for me before the next day. And so I go to Bad Robot, which if you've ever get the chance to go to Bad Robot, A, you should totally go. B, it is not called Bad Robot outside the building. It is called the National Typewriter Company. And it's on Olympic Boulevard in Santa Monica. I don't give, I'll tell you where it is. They have so much fucking security, it doesn't matter that you know where it is. They're like, I want to see JJ's. Freeze. Like Ed 209 is on the front lawns. And like, register your offense. And so I go down there and I'm sitting in the waiting room and playing with all the fucking toys. And because the waiting room is like a rotating gallery of shit JJ happens to like or loved when he was a child. So it's like Barbie doll. There was an Ava DuVernay Barbie doll. There was a bunch of like old robots. There was a phaser from Star Trek. Just, it's fucking bananas. And that's this dude's office. It's like the best museum you've ever been in. And so I'm sitting in there and I'm fucking twiddling my heels, waiting to see if JJ passes by. No fucking JJ. And then I get called into this conference room, and inside Dusty and Sam, the two guys who are running the show, they pretend like they can't tell me what it is, right? Because it's Bad Robot and all this fucking high security. It's like, so we're working on a show. We can't say what it's about, but how do you feel about horror? I was like, I love it. I'm also a giant fucking pussy because I kind of hate it also. Like my love of horror kind of stopped around the Dawn of the Dead remake, I think. I was kind of on board before then. Like I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I was all about John Carpenter, all about Sam Raimi, all about the kind of like awesome VHS horror that you could get as a kid. When it was kind of like craft and a little bit of shit and all put in a fucking blender and you love it to death, right? I was not here for like K horror or J horror or like fucking Eli Roth torture porn. Like it was never my jam. Like I like being manipulated into an emotion that I find pleasurable, and being terrified is not an emotion that I get a lot of joy out of. So I was not that guy. But I said, well, yeah, you know, I loved horror as a kid. I loved reading horror. I loved watching horror to a point. I also happen to be a pretty big Stephen King fan, because they don't know that I knew that it was a Stephen King show. It was still like, well, fucking secrecy. And I was like, yeah, you know, I read a lot of Stephen King as a kid, but never like the super scary stuff. But I went like the Bachman books. I went The Shining. I went The Stand. I went, you know, the Running Man. I went all of that, like Eyes of the Dragon, like the weird esoteric Stephen King shit. And I'm like, well, we're doing this show. It's about a black lawyer in an all-white town. I said, really? Tell me more, white guys, about your conception of an all-white town with a black lawyer in it. And, you know, I said, well, I have a little experience. I've been snowmobiling, which I have, wasn't lying, although I'm totally fine lying about shit in a meeting, because they're never going to check. Like, nobody checks references, right? I mean, do you guys check references? Like, do you know how I got here? Anybody try and bother to verify my bona fides? But yeah, I went snowmobiling. I got a buddy who loves to snowmobile, and he would always love to go in like Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine. And so I would go because I like speed. You don't have to really physically exert yourself. You're sitting on a fucking snowmobile, and you can pretend to be athletic. And but snowmobiling in February in Maine is the whitest thing ever in every regard. Like, it's covered in snow. Like, everything, the roads you can't even fucking see. You're deep fucking forest. And every place you go, you're just surrounded by, like, the salt of the earth is, I suppose, the nice way of referring to the denizens of Maine in February, which were all super lovely people. But there was definitely a sense of being the only one in a place. You know, like I've been to Romania, again, and I would try and count how many African Americans I would see, and I never found another one. I found a bunch of like Liberians and Nigerians, and like I found black people from Africa. Yeah, like, you know, Romania, and apparently Romania has a pretty decent school system. I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about Romania. I'm not gonna tell you about Romania. Because who gives a fuck about Romania? But it was a place that I went where I never saw anybody who was me. And all of that started to talk to the show they were trying to build. They were trying to build a show about a town that the world had left behind, that that had been rained upon with so much horror that people just fled to the hills. And who stays in a town like that? Who hangs out in Castle Rock after everybody fucking left? And what does that feel like? And I said, well, I lived in New Jersey, in Middletown, New Jersey, and post 9/11, it had the highest loss rate, or the per capita, more people died from that particular town in 9/11 than any other place in the country. And the town felt like there was a scar, like a bleeding wound in that town, because everybody knew somebody who didn't come home that day. Everybody knew somebody who hadn't made it. And that level of trauma and that level of horror and that level of just existential dread was real for like 3 or 4 years after 9/11. And so, I gave my fucking pitter patter and I did a little tap dance in the room, and here's where you should hire me because I'm awesome. And they said, great, awesome, you come highly recommended. We'll call you. And then I left and I called my agent and says, I think I didn't get this job because I did all my I was as cute as I could be. And I got fucking nothing. And so I went back to fucking work and, day in, day out, fucking editing stories. And then February 10th, I get a call of 2017 saying, hey, we're starting the writer's room in 4 days. Can you be there? And I said, yes. And then I went to my boss and I was like, hey, guess what? I don't have a dentist appointment, but I'm quitting. Kinda like today. So I know you'd really like 2 weeks notice. I know you'd even like 48 hours notice, but I'm just gonna say it's Wednesday and I'm not gonna be here on Monday. So I hope you're good with this. And they were like, what's the job? And I said, well, I can't tell you because I'm sworn to fucking secrecy. I can say it is for a TV show. I cannot say who's producing it. I cannot say what it's about. But they're like, you can't just fucking quit and not tell us anything. So I tell my boss, all right, listen, just between you and me, the show called Castle Rock, Stephen King, and JJ was producing it. And so my boss then sends out the Marc is leaving email and broadcasts all of that shit to like the 300 people in the entertainment department of the LA Times, all of which have like Twitter accounts and shit. And they're like, I'm like, you can't just, okay, fuck. Now I'm totally leaving because you just did that. I was gonna be nice and give you some phone numbers of people you could call to maybe replace me. Fuck that. I'm gone. And so I showed up for work, day one. And it's a little weird because the TV show, it's transitory. Like it's all freelance. Nobody really ever counts on having a job for longer than a year, maybe 2 years. If you're on a fucking hit show, maybe you'll go 3 years. But just, it's a churn. It's all a fucking churn. And so every day of day one of a writer's room is like first day of school, right? Like you just show up, you're like, I hope the kids like me. What should I fucking wear? It's like, I don't know, I'm 46 years old. Why do I give a fuck if they like me? I have children and a mortgage. I don't give a fuck. But you're just like, hi, who am I gonna sit with at lunch? Do I eat in my office? Do we eat out here? Are we gonna go for a walk? Where are you from? It's weird, like first date / first day of kindergarten / we're also getting to play in Stephen King world. And I'm going to talk with Roth Cornet in a second, and she's a super diehard fan of the show, and she's an amazing journalist, and she has feelings and thoughts and theories about the show, and I'm going to let her just unload with both barrels. But it was a ridiculous opportunity to be able to take Stephen King and do not a cover song of Stephen King, like we didn't want to do an adaptation of any one particular story, but it was, can we find the lost Stephen King song? The Stephen King song that feels like every other Stephen King song, that feels as if it's a thing that dude wrote, and feels like it slots on the shelf with every other Stephen King book that you've ever read. And if we can pull that off, people will, I think, respond to it, and my job was to make sure that it was actually a horror show. And hopefully, we succeeded in some level or another. So that is my path to Castle Rock. That is how I got there. That is how I set the GPS to take me to fucking Maine and help scare people. And then let's bring up Roth, and Roth is going to grill the shit out of me about things I probably shouldn't tell anybody else if I'd ever like to work in Castle Rock again. Hey, Roth. Everybody say hello to Roth.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for pretending to know who I am.
Yay.
Yay, I love Marc so much. So I sat down to jot down a few notes for tonight about Castle Rock, and I have the beginnings of a very weird dissertation.
Oh, well, by all means, get after it.
Is this like a moral relativism kind of a bar, or do we want to just do Easter eggs? How are we feeling? Moral relativism. Ooh, twist. Okay.
Hell yeah, okay. It's Tuesday.
So we're going to do full spoilers, yeah?
Yes.
Everything's
I'm
spoilers.
assuming you all here have seen the show, yes?
Okay.
And if you haven't seen the show at home,
And chime in, like, feel free to yell if you want me to hit a particular note. Like, how much should we all be reading The Dark Tower before season 2 on a scale of 1 to read the entire thing tonight?
From what I know about what season 2 is going to be, you will not have to read the entirety of The Dark Tower. You will not have to read really any of The Dark Tower.
Okay.
I mean, it couldn't hurt.
Well, that's going to get to some of the theories that I have seen going on and that I have in my own. I have a lot of feelings about the show, but let's just start with the idea that I feel like there's all these themes, right? But for me, the biggest one was just that the opposite of fate is doubt, right?
The opposite of faith is doubt.
This is so weird to do with a microphone in a bar.
But although a bar feels like the right place, though. Like maybe we need like drinks.
Can we do a little? Can I fix you a drink?
We have bartenders here who I'm sure would be happy to give us something. What do you want?
Any beer that you have would be great.
Just a beer. I like beer.
Just
I'm a fan
beer.
of beer. Any beer? Light beer? Dark beer? German beer? American beer? I like beer. I like to drink beer.
Yeah, because boys like beer, girls like beer, this crowd likes beer. I just saw Venom. I think I deserve a beer.
Oh, shit.
Oh, uh-oh.
Oh, no, you didn't.
I didn't say it was bad.
You just say you need to bury some brain cells after seeing it.
It is a lovely story of a boy and his symbiote.
Well, if Transformers can be about a boy in his car, then why can't Venom be about a boy in his alien body stocking?
Pet. Let's talk about Andre Holland a little bit.
Andre Holland, yes.
And right? Yeah, unbelievable. And what's amazing to me about his performance and thank you so much. I wonder what it is. His character arc is that he starts as like the most relatable, right, to us. Kind of the most cynical. He's the least attached to the world. The actor was never in any of the movies. And by the end, it comes full circle. And he is Castle Rock. Mm-hmm. And these things that have defined him in terms of being, employing doubt for the greater good becomes a very sinister version of doubt. He's sitting there in the same doubt that the warden was in at the beginning of the show. By the way, is the warden like not the defense against the dark arts position on this show? like you're definitely gonna die.
Well, there was early on there was a lot of talk in the room about the good men of Castle Rock. This idea that, and it parts of it still remain in the show, especially when you get to episode 9, I think it is. But the idea that Warden Lacey, that Sheriff Pangborn, and that Reverend Deaver were like the 3 pillars of Castle Rock. And they would shoulder the burden of having to do the wrong thing for the right reason. And the wrong thing clearly is putting a kid in a fucking cage.
But is it?
That's the moral question of the show. There's also, I want to say it's an Octavia Butler short story, or Ursula K. Le Guin. But I think it's called, but it's about a town that decides that they want to keep a boy underground in prison. And if he's in prison, the town above will be blissfully free of anything horrible. But they have to swallow upon themselves the moral weight of doing an awful thing to an innocent child because it makes it everything better for everybody. It's the lottery, ultimately.
Sure,
but it's
yeah.
just underground, but with boys and not girls. And so that idea of this is on the face of it, a bad thing. Because if you have no evidence that this kid is doing anything bad, or if you've seen him doing anything bad, but you believe, as Matthew Deaver did, that he is the cause of all the evil in Castle Rock, then that kid has to be in jail.
Okay.
And who's willing to make that call? And what's the price of that call once you make it?
Sure, but it is, look, we start out with this idea of that if you have any measure of reasonable doubt, you cannot kill a person. Mm-hmm. But is it worse to do that than leave them sitting rotting in a jail for 27 years by themselves in solitary confinement? Like in that case, once you've done that, you've potentially made a monster. If he wasn't a monster to begin with, there's so much revelations in this, and he fully is like came once as the lamb and then back as the lion. Am I getting that right? I don't know my Bible. Bible people? No?
Dominus Omus, we'll be all right. Yeah, I mean, it's also the idea that the kid was, we had talked so much in the room about, what the kid was, what the prisoner was. Is he the devil? Is he a demon? Is he just an innocent person for whom people are imparting onto him, their own worst fears, whatever? Is he Leland Gaunt from Needful Things? Or is he a splinter in the world? And that splinter is causing things to infect around the entry site. Like if the kid should not be here, then Castle Rock is where the manifestations of him not, it's the earth resisting him actually being here.
Right, rejecting the
new visitor from another land. And that had taken a bunch of different forms in the room. Like there was, he carries chaos in his wake, and all things will fall beyond him. Some of it was directed, some of it wasn't, some of it was accidental. All of that kind of fell by the wayside in favor of this slightly more esoteric version of, he doesn't know if things are happening, things may or may not be happening, we almost never see them happening. But it's a lot of the legend of the kid seems to follow him where he goes.
Sure, and also lots of death and stuff.
Yes, but like death you rarely get to see.
Or is he, and here's another question about how time works, because if time is splintering in this world, mm-hmm. If time is splintering in this world, which it is, then is he witnessing, when he goes in and he watches this family that's sitting down to have some cake, is he inspiring a meltdown and a turn to violence, or is he witnessing a piece of violence that happened in the past? Because when he's hearing things that are happening, the dead body, which we know is Stand By Me, the body, right. And he's hearing things from different periods of time. So answer my question, sir. Was that past or present?
It is present.
Okay, it was present.
Yeah, the only time traveler in the show is Ruth.
Okay.
And even her time travel is dementia, really. But we are almost always, aside from the occasional like flashback that we see, in current time moving forward. So when he goes to that house and he climbs up to the roof and you hear that family kill themselves, they're actually killing themselves with him on the roof of their house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Sick. What? The Queen, Ruth?
Yeah.
Sissy Spacek of all the Emmys?
Well,
all the Emmys.
Yeah, that is, we are in her perspective, and subjectively for her, she's bouncing through time. But that is not objectively in the show. It is just in her brain, she cannot keep time in its correct order. So she goes from past to past to present to past to past, and right, and sure.
So this is really one of my favorite episodes of television that I've seen in a number of years, was the Queen, her episode, because it is this amazing metaphor for dementia, but it also is like, but it is a time fracture because she's aware of, when she has the conversation with Molly, she says, well, you've never said that before. Which means she's aware of these subtle differences and these changes, which means that it can change, which means Ruth's not dead. Answer the question.
Well, it's not that it doesn't change, because she's not time traveling, and she's not affecting any other time, quote unquote, timeline that she's in. The things that are different for her because she's off her meds.
Okay.
And so she is observing sort of dementia swirl in a different way than she usually does. And she had been locked into one particular version of the past that she's allowing in new information into that version of the past. So yeah, she's not going to save any whales, you know, to then like suddenly, oh shit, Castle Rock is fine because I went back in time and saved the fucking whales and now we're back and everything's okay. It is still just...
That would save everything, would it
right,
not?
though?
That's the thing.
Fucking CC Spacek piloting a starship full of whales. I'm going to pitch that to Hulu tomorrow.
It's on the internet now, so it's a little too late. How does that work? Do you own the ideas that you pitch on the show? This show?
Well, probably not. However, there is an idea that I pitched and I still love that we didn't use that I will try and put in something else.
Okay. All right. That means that I still own the bad pitches that I'm going to make on this show that no one would buy?
Oh, hell yeah.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit. So it feels like there are rules. And I'm wondering when you're working on this, this is so layered. Like it hits the hardcore Stephen King fans. It hits the casual kind of like, I watched the movies and read Misery fan. Right? And then it just works as a show. You don't have to have touched any of King, which is amazing. So what kind of matrix are you dealing with? Do you have the people that are on the Easter eggs and those that do character development, and you're like, let's kill some people?
Well, I mean, the way almost any writer's room works is it works macro to micro, right? You're starting day one in the writer's room. We'll all get together and we'll order lunch because it's all about lunch in a writer's room. And we'll start thinking blue sky. Like, if this show could be anything, what could it be? The showrunners have an ideas. Like, they've got a character, they've got a setting. We had between 9 and 11 Stephen King works to choose from. We had the rights to. So we had the rights to Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. We had the rights to The Shining. We had the rights to Dolores Claiborne. We had the rights to The Green Mile. And so it was, all right, well, let's read a bunch of books. Let's see what we can absorb, what we can learn about how Stephen King tells stories, right? And then we go from here's what we feel like the whole show is to, all right, let's cut that into 10 separate slices. And what does it feel like? What are these characters doing throughout the show? And in that point, you're not really considering so much of the tropes and the rules of genre. It is more, let's just talk about people. Let's talk about where we want them to start, where we want them to end, what we want them to learn, how we want them to change over that time. And then as we start even getting more granular than that, it becomes, all right, well, how does the world work? Like, are we going to is this parallel universes? Is it not? Are we sure, or are we not?
Is it not? Are you sure, are you not?
It is.
Okay.
And,
right? Okay.
It's, yes, two parallel universes. The schisma is the sound of those universes grinding together.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
So does that mean the kid's unreliable narrative story is real? Is that what actually happened? Come on!
I believe it. I believe it.
Who thinks that that's what happened? That the kid came from this other world and I got 1, I got 2, I have this 3, 4, not, majority do not. Okay. But we're right.
You're right. I mean, I choose to believe it only because as a storyteller, you have to believe that there's a firm ground beneath you, and that lets you tell the rest of those stories. As if this is going to be our like start on fucking Monopoly. Like, this is Go. Go is parallel universes. This kid got sucked through here because Henry could hear it in a way that nobody could. We wanted to do this great scene that never happened, but how the Deavers adopted Henry is they went to a hospital, and Matthew Deaver, crazy fucking Matthew Deaver,
sure,
had a tuning fork and would like bang the fork and like walk by each fucking crib, and the kid who cried was the kid who they were going to adopt because he knew he wanted somebody who had some weird oral ability to hear frequencies that nobody else could hear. And he had figured out exactly what the frequency of the schisma was and was finding the boy who could hear it for him and then raising him to be the awful fucking lightning rod for parallel universe travel.
Right. And so then the kid, Henry Deaver, alternate universe Henry.
Yes.
Because here's the, like, Needful Things is so present in this for me. It just felt the most like Needful Things for most of the season. But then I was thinking about, well, what are the temptations? And they're really right there. Like, Alan is tempted by the idea that the kid can cure the Alzheimer's, even though he's already met the devil. does he not remember it happened not that long ago?
Yeah, there's a little bit of like, how much does he remember of the dark ages of Castle Rock?
But how much, so like how, I'm going to come back to the idea of the kid, but how much does a character like Alan remember the events of the other books and stories that character's been a part of?
I mean, we would like to say that he remembers all of it, or in a sort of PTSD haze has decided not to remember some of it. You know, like even if the devil visits your town more than once, I can see that being a thing you don't really want to cop to, or even convince yourself that it was a delusion in some way. You know, like, am I gonna believe, if I'm Sheriff Brody, how many sharks do I think are gonna fucking land on Amity, Maine?
So many, more than you would think.
Yes, apparently tons of them. But like, I can see a world,
and they're like bitter, mean sharks.
They're not fucking around.
These are mean girl sharks. They won't follow you to the Bermuda Bahamas.
Especially if Lou Gossett Jr.'s around. But, you know, the version of Alan Pangborn we were working with was a version of Alan Pangborn who experienced a bunch of shit, put it behind him. Once he retired, he just put all that fucking shit in a closet and left and only cared about Ruth. And Ruth was his North Star, and as long as he could be with her for whatever time they had left, he was fine. And even when the bad shit comes back, if it gets in the way of him and Ruth, he will deal with it. If it doesn't affect him and Ruth, he doesn't give a fuck.
So the very, very biggest temptation to me is that entire, for us as the audience, and is that entire narrative of this alternate universe that is so much more happy, where people feel better, everything's brighter, it's just a little more optimistic. This is the universe that the kid comes from. So to me, it's like, if that is real, and that is an option, why would we not just invade it and kill our alternate selves and have better lives? That's a side question. That's a side question. But also, if that's real, then those 27 years turned him into a monster.
Yes,
absolutely. Right? Turned him into the guy that would want to kill his stepfather.
You know, like being imprisoned by Matthew Deaver in the other world, Black Henry, that's the only way you can tell the two apart. Black Henry would have been, and being confronted with the fact that his adopted father, hated and psychologically abused his adopted mother. Like, there's a lot of reasons for Black Henry to want to kill Matthew Deaver. The being imprisoned by him in another universe is actually like the least of them, to a certain degree. Like, you could buy a kid who never went to another universe, whose father treated his mother and himself that poorly, who snapped. The other universe is just accelerant on that fire that was already going to go off.
How much are you guys trolling us? Right?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 3.
Just like a 3. That's minimal trolling.
That's minimal trolling. It was never about like, let's piss the fans off or let's chum the waters and see what happens. It was more like, you know, as we're figuring out the story as we go, what's the most effective version of this thing? What's the most evocative version of this thing? And this sort of ongoing tussle between what is objectively real and what is subjectively real. Like, what do our characters believe, and then what do we as storytellers show? And that lever kept getting adjusted as the season went. Of like, this is totally what's happening. Like, the Molly superpower was something that had also, like, there was a sort of scale through which it vacillated from she's a fucking mutant with superpowers to just kind of asocial, you know. And I think by the end of the show, we're more towards like superpower. We're more towards, she can feel things that people are feeling. She can, in some way, it's not quite The Shining, but it's close.
But it's so close. Right, it seems like The Shine, right? And then she even has the same kind of reaction where she's just like, I gotta drug myself and try and keep it down.
I mean,
yeah.
There's a real medical condition called mirror touch synesthesia, where people can, like,
There's so many words.
I know, it's a ton of words. And like, if I'm sitting opposite a person and I have this condition and that person is eating, I feel full. Like, my body absorbs and registers another person's physical sensations and emotions.
Can I catch that and then watch people eat and then just make that work for me?
But like you talk to people who have this condition and like, sure, there's the awesome parts of it, which I'm assuming sex is amazing. But there's that person is crying and I feel sad and I don't know why. That person feels nauseous and I don't know why I feel nauseous. Like I have no real agency over my own body because I consistently respond to everybody else around me. And the only way for them to navigate through the world is to dull some of those senses. And tons of drug use, sometimes self-prescribed, sometimes overprescribed. But that was the Molly we were starting to play with. And then what happens if that medicine, what happens if that science nudges a little bit because Castle Rock is a fucked up place.
Right, and then the volume starts to kind of go, and then also Henry's kind of a trigger for her.
Totally. Henry was always the one she had bonded with the most for reasons that, we never quite got into, but she had been obsessed with him as a little girl. Like, here's this little boy who's going out to the middle of the woods in the middle of the night and doing awful shit, and here's this kid who's kind of lonely because nobody seems to want to talk to the weird black kid who just disappeared for 12 days and his dad died. Like, there was this whole bond between them. Yeah?
The town reacts very poorly to that, I found.
Yeah, it's not the most accommodating of birds.
I found it was pretty nasty.
Hey, killer.
Yeah. My dad just died. But then he did try to kill him, so they had a point.
He totally did.
So let's talk about, though, Molly, and this is what I mean. There's some amazing, and I don't know if you guys have been online and looked at some of these fan theories. They're great. And you can find anything on Reddit. Don't. But there's how much of this is pointed and how much of it is just playing a little bit, right? So she walks in and she's in a red cloak and something has taken her over when she does the murder. And then later she's in the yellow raincoat. So all of this to me is tying her visually to Skarsgård and the kid, who is maybe someone else or working as a minion for someone else, like a Crimson King or something like this. And that it wasn't Henry, our Henry, that was inspiring her to do that murder, but it was alternate universe Henry's arrival. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, how much of that is like you're implanting it so that people pick up these threads and go down a rabbit hole, and how much of it is just there to mess around and be like, oh, it is also a thing.
It was never designed to be a messing with the audience's heads. It was always designed to keep you guessing as to which Henry she felt a kinship to, and as we saw in episode 9, when you go to the other world, they had a very close bond, and that Molly over there was not fucked up. Like, she probably had a little touch of that. She was very empathetic, but was not pushed to the extremes that our Molly is. And her bond with Henry via the sort of red sweatshirt, the red hoodie, is real, as is when he comes. Like, she felt, in the room, we tried to get this idea that she could feel everybody's feeling when she was around them. What troubled her the most about him was that she felt nothing. That he was just this black hole of emotion, of agency, of anything. Like, she just couldn't get a read. And that's like, I've got great hearing, and suddenly I walk into a room where there's no sound at all. And that's deeply unsettling to her. And she was in a weird way drawn to that because she understood that, like, it's a thing I've never felt quiet in my entire life. This guy's quiet. It freaks me out, but it also kind of jazzes me. And so let me get closer to this flame that I totally shouldn't get closer to.
So as you unravel these threads in the season to come, first of all, do you guys want them to go back to Castle Rock, or do you want them to go to the Overlook? Show of hands. Like, who wants to go to the Overlook? But we can go. I'm pitching it right now. So let's go to Salem's Lot too. Where are we going?
To the best of my knowledge, this is a show that's built to be a anthology, a season-long anthology, and so whatever the next story will be will not be a continuation of this. That's not to say that, I know, right? Blue balls, that shit.
Fargo. That's a good show.
Yeah. That is not to say that, much like Fargo, like, characters do sort of wind their ways between seasons, and events that took place in the past might have effects in the future, but we will not be picking up season 2, episode 1 with, like, hi, we're following Jane Levy as she goes to the Overlook Hotel. That's probably not going to happen.
Well, there's still so much more here, though, that didn't get addressed. Let's talk about the 27 years and how there's no way that's a coincidence. Answer the question.
I will also say that per my previous answer, I get a little legalese. The 27 years will probably not be investigated in season 2 either. But the 27 years that young Henry was in the other world, that white Henry was in our world, is real.
Okay.
Yes, real-time passage.
That's a real answer. That's so much more of an answer than I thought I was going to get tonight, if I'm honest.
Yay! So how come Mark didn't show up for season 2 of Castle Rock? Well, he did a podcast, see, and told everything.
It doesn't rely on that, though. This show does not rely on that. It really doesn't. It's not like a one-trick pony show at all. Because, I mean, I think that's really true. Like, there's just so much to dive into in this thing.
There's still a lot of story left in Castle Rock, and there's a lot of story left in Stephen King that we do have control over, that we can twist and massage and manipulate into a season 2 that will still feel resonant with this one and still have the echoes of this one, but be new story, new characters, new everything.
Did you track the theories?
Not at all. Primarily because we wrote the show last year, you know, and I had not been engaged with the show in a real way until after it came out, you know, like I was in the room from February to October of last year. I was on set for my episode, and I got to see a cut of my episode in like February of last year or so, of this year, I'm sorry. And once it came out, it was, I want to watch the show because I want to see what the fuck we did. Mm-hmm. Because it was a bananas fucking show with bonkers fucking scripts. And like, how do you do this? I'm going to watch and find out. But I didn't really engage with the deep dive and the theories. I was never that guy, really. Like, even in Lost, I was never like,
oh, I was.
I have friends who were. I have colleagues who were. I have nothing but respect for those who did. But I was just never that guy.
That was also the most apt description of Bad Robot that I've ever heard.
Fair enough.
And we're all going to show up there now. He doesn't have... Yeah, I wish. That was also my aspirational quitting of my job. So screw you, Screen Junkies, I'm done.
Game over. Go to work at the typewriter company.
Pretty much, I wish. He wasn't all... He doesn't get all that involved, right? Like, not in a really direct way.
JJ operates because Bad Robot produces so fucking much between movies and between stuff he directs, between, you know, the 12 shows I have in the air at any given time. He can't actually be overly involved in anything. The thing he can do for you is make the phone calls that get answers immediately. So it's, hey, we're thinking about going after Sissy Spacek. We're not sure she's just interested. Do you want me to give her a call? Yeah, JJ, that'd be great. And JJ calls Sissy Spacek and she says, all right, I'll be in your show. You know, like he's the fucking, like, if Barack Obama was a white dude with glasses and could get anybody on the phone, that's what that is like. You know, so he's your 800-pound gorilla that you send in and just like barrel through doors and get shit done. He was very interested in the first script and the pilot, both on script level and in the cutting of the pilot when we had shot it, and very interested in like the marketing of it. But he was never like a hands-on person. Like Bad Robot would give us notes, but it was never JJ. It was somebody else at Bad Robot. Hulu would give us notes, and they were all great. But it was very much like, you know, JJ would like this to happen. Like, all right, JJ, whatever you want, man.
Which note was terrible? They weren't all great. Come on. They were all great. Who was watching, they were all great.
There's no world in which every note is great. You know, the note you frequently got the most was connective tissue. Like, how do we know all of these strands are going to tie together? But part of the weird tension between the Bad Robot way of telling stories and the Stephen King way of telling stories is that Bad Robot is all about the mystery. Bad Robot, I mean, you've seen JJ's TED Talk. It's the mystery box. It's the let me tease you with the bomb under the chair before I ever show it going off. And I'm not as interested in what happens at the end of it as much as I am the questions that we do for it. Stephen King does not give a fuck about mystery. Stephen King is like, what is it? Cujo. How do you know it's in the fucking title? What is it? Christine. How do you know it's in the fucking title? Like, he never hides the ball. It's what's doing it. It's it. Huh. What's it? Fucking demon clown. It's like on page 5 of that book. Demon clown. It's never a mystery. It's more like I'm going to establish these human characters and drop the fucking supernatural on them and see how they react to it. So how those two storytelling modes kind of got together was a weird alchemy of, all right, we have to kind of build a mystery to make Bad Robot happy, but we also need to not hide so much of the mystery to make Stephen King fans happy. And then Hulu was like, just tell us how this fucking connects. Just tell us how it makes sense. You know, the more clarity we can have, the better. And that was always the tension, was like clarity versus obfuscation versus being bald about it, being hiding it. And I think we kind of got to a happy medium of all of that stuff, I think.
It feels very totally, because look, I'm surprised he wasn't more involved, because the chess pieces alone are straight out of JJ. I mean, that's like good and evil play. God and the devil are playing a game, and you're the chess piece. You know, is all in Lost towards the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, the Queen episode was an entirely Sam Shaw invention, because his mother had passed away the week before we were set to open the room, and she suffered from dementia. And so he spent the front half of the season just processing it, just dealing with the loss of his mom and like settling her estate and going through her house and all of that stuff, that the excavation of a life and the reckoning with that particular kind of demise weighed heavily on him. And so the chess pieces thing was not surprising at all, that it's, I think, a thing that his mom had done. Like that, I need these anchors in the world so I can come back to the people that I love and be present for them while they're here. And Bad Robot, I think, had almost nothing to say about that script. We in the room were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if she was a time traveler? He's like, great! And then he just delivered a script. Like, we never broke that episode in the room. It was Sam's gonna go off and write, and he came back and delivered the script. Because it was all part of, I think, his healing process, his coping process. And I think you can see it.
You absolutely can. That's a beautiful episode, and that
it's gorgeous.
Just makes it more so. As well as the idea that by stealing this kid, Alan removed, at least in one world, the single human that could have healed her in the way that he desired, and destroyed it. That's like there's just a lot in there, I think, in terms of this idea of the sins of the past bubbling up, but also, you're looking at the character that's a hero, Henry I. And he's attempted murder. Through Molly, he's done a murder.
And how two people could be bonded by that kind of act and feel real love and real attraction and real lust for each other, the source of which is like the tree from that fruit is rotten, is that we killed a person together. That's why we're bonded. That's why we're so close-knit. We did an awful thing. We're like Mickey and Mallory, but like way less fun.
Yeah, she also wants to do it with him, though, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did do it.
When did they do it? Oh, they did do it.
They did do it.
They totally did it.
Because,
yeah. They did it. I feel like I should let you guys ask questions too, right? Like, should I
Sure, why
let
not?
the
You want to open it to the crowd?
actual humans?
JC is running around with a mic. For people who have queries.
Should I move
can
away?
I tell you, no, you can stay here. Can I tell you my favorite thing that I pitched in the room that we didn't use?
Yeah.
Very early on, but halfway through the run of the show, we kept on revolving around, is this a parallel universe? Is it what's wrong with Castle Rock? Does it have an original sin? What's going on? And I was like, okay, let's imagine for a second that there was a teenage girl, about 30 years ago, had a really awful experience in high school. She may or may not be a telekinetic. She may or may not have had like a pig's blood incident. She may or may not have like set a town on fire. And so, but what if like, in order to cover up the weirdness of it all, like she just gets dropped in a witness protection program. She just gets, she gets assigned a new name. She gets given a new hometown. And let's pretend that hometown is now Castle Rock. And let's pretend that woman is now Ruth Deaver. And so what happens if the most powerful telepath in the world is losing her mind?
So dangerous.
So like, was that the initial tear between the universes? Is that why bad shit is happening? Is that why the morality is off the scale? Is that why it feels like Castle Rock is tearing itself apart? Because this woman's mind is tearing herself apart. And the response was like, yeah, we don't have the rights to carry. I'm like, you don't need them. You got Sissy Spacek.
Yeah, you got Carrie.
She's standing right there.
Yeah.
Like 80% of that work is Sissy Spacek, and she's right there.
Yeah.
All we need to do is just say, remember that time she blew up with her mind? Yeah, that was fucked up. And then everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And then eventually it was like, it's too close. We can't do it. I'm like, that's all right. I'm gonna hit pocket, y'all.
She just needs to throw a couple of knives.
Always good.
And hear a little bit of soft laughing and be really pissed off about it. Also, is there a way that the world splits and then Professor X enters and they work together and
that would be amazing.
Old man Professor X, Logan crossover, season 3.
Hey man.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you again.
Good to be seen. So I have a question. It's a thread that I don't know if it kind of just was a red herring or not, but there was an episode, I haven't watched it since it came out, but where he stumbles upon a house, because I guess he's trying to, Black Henry, he's trying, there you go.
It's the only way to do it, really.
It's kind of cool. So he stumbles upon a house because he's trying to retrace his steps, kind of trying to see what happened in the past, and he stumbles upon this kind of like rundown house, and there's like a barber, the white barber that's in there, and it seems to be where he was, and he's like, well, you remember me, you remember I didn't touch you, and I'm like, I felt like that was gonna go somewhere, and it kind of like never went back there, or did I just miss an episode where?
No, there's no more episode there.
So, because I felt like that kind of gave me a hint into where, well, something really happened here versus all that other stuff is just supernatural, and they're trying to make it up. But nothing ever corroborated that, so I couldn't really.
No, the idea was, initially anyway, that when Henry came back, before he gets found by what's-his-face, Alan Pangborn, he dropped in on this dude's house, and weird, awful, pseudo shit kind of happened. But I don't think that at the end of the day, it landed that well in the show.
Yeah, I interpret it as that's where he was. And that's why he was trying to go to the backyard and was like, was I here? Was this the cage that I was in versus the other place?
The impulse there was to give both Henry and the audience two equally valid theories as to what happened in the woods for those 12 days. Were you held in a fucking cage by this dude, or were you in a parallel universe for 27 years? One of them sounds more plausible, one of them is true. And trying to not quite troll the audience, but leave that irresolution hanging in the air so that you could kind of push the mystery further and then live in that sense of, I'm not entirely sure because the character's not entirely sure. Does that make sense?
No, and it worked because I wasn't entirely sure because of that.
Hooray!
There you go. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. We do have some tickets to give away to the Ripley's Believe It or Not fucked up museum just down the street.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Jamie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm very excited that you have a female guest. That really made me happy.
Because Roth is amazing.
But my question is about, if you know, maybe you don't, the music choices. Do they have to do with the characters? Like when Molly goes and makes her drug deal, they're playing Hybrid Moments by the Misfits. Mm-hmm. Or when, and I didn't understand, you said Black Henry, and is the other one White Henry?
Sure.
Okay.
We got two Henrys, one black, one white.
When he's messing with Ruth, he puts on Roy Orbison. Are those choices run by you? Who decides? Because they worked well. All the choices did, but
those choices are first put in at the script level, at the writer's like, I would love, for my money, the best version of this is like Gene Pickney's 24 Hours to Tulsa, and that would be amazing if we could get it. But if we can't get it, something that feels like it, and then it goes up the chain, and then you shoot the episode, and you put the song in there, because why the fuck not? And then it becomes music clearances. Like, how much will it cost us for these songs? How much will it cost us to get the rights and air it? And if it's not that bad and we can afford it, or if we feel like we desperately need to have it, then that's where that conversation happens. But it starts from the writers and from the showrunners, and from there it blossoms to the rest of the production.
did you have any choices in your episode, which was 6, I believe.
The one thing that I wanted to get in there that never got in there was the idea that Henry Deaver, Black Henry Deaver, as a black kid growing up in a white town in what would have been the late 80s, early 90s, would have been way into like Fishbone and Public Enemy and like trying to claim your blackness in a place that doesn't often give you purchase for that, to a certain degree, like over the top, like fucking listening to like Farrakhan speeches and all of that stuff, so that you could have a sense of culture that seems to be separate from you. That never made it in there because we never had the like, here's in his room with Wendell, and Wendell presses the fucking tape cassette. It's like, damn, Dad, you listen to a lot of LL Cool J. I know, I was a jingling baby. Go ahead, baby. And like, but none of that. That scene just never happened. So we never got to hear like the music that Henry loves as much as we did the music that other people love.
That does make sense. Thank you.
Sure enough. Would you like tickets to fucking crazy ass museum? Ooh.
Hi, how's it going?
It's great, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Are you wearing a Venom shirt?
Yes, I am. I'm wearing a Venom shirt.
Ah.
I know I'm probably gonna be disappointed, right?
No,
From all these reviews
nobody
that I
said
see coming
that.
out.
It's funny, actually.
So I guess technically, like, you could also weigh in on like your opinion on it. So like all the death that like goes on in the town during Castle Rock, like everyone says it's like because of the kid or white Henry Deaver, and like my interpretation of like what's going on is that think of it like an equation, basically, because white Henry Deaver's from like this other universe in this universe that is not his. It's trying to balance itself out, so it's just killing people wildly to try and get back to that centralized, like equilibrium. So like that's my interpretation of it. I don't really think that he's evil or whatnot. I just think it's like part of this equation that needs to be balanced out. I just want to see if maybe like what your thoughts were on that as well, and if you could weigh in on it.
Theories.
Yes.
Oh no, come on, a little more than that.
No, it is all about balance. And if in episode 10, if Henry had took it upon himself to, and I don't know what the mechanics of putting a dude back in his universe look like, but if he could somehow have taken white Henry Deaver and shoved him through the fucking universe anus and come out the other side, everything would be fine. Like, both of those universes would be okay. Like, the people are where they're supposed to be. Everything is how it's supposed to be. We can all go off and, like, not have to keep children in fucking cages. That would be great. But because Henry doesn't do that, Black Henry, you're still left with this imbalance. Somebody's got to be in a fucking cage in order for the world to keep turning. And that's the weight that Black Henry's willing to carry. That's the burden he's willing to bear, is I've got to be the warden. I've got to be the last good man in Castle Rock.
Question.
Follow-up, counselor?
Follow-up question. So I feel like there were a couple of theories. One was that he was kind of like the opposite of John Coffey, and like if he touched you, you would not be healed, you would die or do bad things. Mm-hmm. He would bring out the worst in you, not the best. The other one is that the kid is Randall Flagg.
Yeah. What?
Okay.
Or what, like the man in black?
But there's also.
I will say we did not have the rights to the stand, but there were conversations which should we just fucking make him Randall Flagg, and ultimately it was no.
Okay. So then he's not. So then it's like a body part. It's like rejecting. If you get at somebody's liver and your body's rejecting it, that's how the Earth is behaving. Right? It's it's creating all kinds of chaos in the entire system to reject this thing and push it out. But there was crazy stuff happening in Castle Rock before that.
Yep.
But he was still in the cage, right?
So it's just like a hellmouth situation?
Well, I think it is the 27 years is when the crazy shit was happening in Castle Rock. Hey.
He's in Derry, exactly, but he's in Derry. Derry's not
Similar
that far
casting.
away. Plus, in the opening credits, Derry's circled with a red pen, like it's significant. Plus, it is Bill Skarsgård.
It is Bill Skarsgård.
with those big eyes.
That is another thing where it's like, we got Bill
I don't know.
Skarsgård. People are going to think he's Pennywise. Like, should we disabuse them of that notion? I don't think so.
By the way, I never gave a negative review for Venom tonight. Let's carry on with Castle Rock.
Does that come close to approximating an answer, or?
Yeah. I would think so.
Okay. All right. Well, then you get tickets to
Thank you very
Crazy
much.
Fucking Museum.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Where are we going next, JC?
Hi guys, James.
James, how are you, Doctor?
All right. Question: do the birds or the sparrows symbolize the same thing in Castle Rock that they do in the Dark Half?
Remind me what they symbolize in the Dark Half.
Passage to other worlds, to a different world.
In our show, the idea was that birds are very sensitive to subsonic frequencies, and the schisma is one of those frequencies. And so there's something about Castle Rock, the location of it, that causes all shit to go wrong. That's ultimately why I think bad things that have happened in Castle Rock happen, is because that schisma is also driving people fucking crazy. And so the birds spiraling and then crashing to the ground and weird, awful avian flu shit is all, I think, the result of the schisma. At least that's how I choose to interpret the bullshit we made up about birds and subsonic frequencies. But yeah, it's not supposed to be supernatural. It's supposed to be a natural side effect of weird shit in the town.
Got it. And last question:
Yeah, shoot.
how much alcohol did you need after seeing Venom?
It was funny. Venom was funny. Did you guys like Zombieland like that much so far tonight? Did you like Zombieland? Do we like anybody sort of? It was a long time. This is the same director as Zombieland. So if you could imagine sort of kind of doing a Zombieland-like comedy, but it's Venom and it's a buddy comedy with Eddie Brock and Venom. But except for the first 15 minutes aren't that? That's the movie. But you know what it did give us? It brought us back to the day of the like, do you remember when Will Smith used to sing the plot of a movie at the end of a movie?
Yeah.
We have that again.
Wild
Eminem
Wild
does
West.
that in this movie.
Wow. That's awesome. Now I'm excited.
Now you're gonna see
Does
it.
Tom Hardy sing the plot of the movie at the end of it?
He's like so crazy.
That would be fucking amazing. Is he
He
doing the
does it.
Bane voice?
Well, okay, so
I've got
now
to
we're
shoot.
doing Venom. Should we be doing it? So he doesn't do the Bane voice entirely. Eddie does have a really thick accent, but Venom's like really sassy and kind of a dick. It's so crazy.
Is Venom a bitch?
like
Like a sassy
kinda?
dick?
Like a little bit, kind of.
The bitchiest symbiote in the galaxy.
Such a bitchy symbiote.
Wow. Now, listen, I was on the fence about Venom before. They're like, why do we need a Venom movie? Venom was like the least interesting part of Spider-Man 3, which had no interesting parts in it. But then, and now, I'm like, I gotta see this fucking Venom movie.
I mean, I think you should see it with your own eyes.
And
Is-
like, yeah, how much of a six-pack will I need to
So
make it
all
through?
of the six-pack.
All right, I'll just put it in my shirt to
It's
pretend
not. I
like
feel
I
like
got a six-pack.
people are gonna love it or hate it. Is my guess.
Or
but
love
that's
to hate it.
literally. But is that not everything?
It's like, you know what? You're gonna like this or you won't.
It's got the kernel of being the weirdest, most amazing twist on a comic book movie, but they just didn't go all the way there. That's my review.
All
which
right.
I don't know why I just put that on the YouTubes. I am not looking at the comments. Also, this is a really weird way to get filmed because the cameras are hidden, so you think they're not here, but they are.
Oh yeah, no, you're yeah. It's a little invasive that way.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Did you have more things?
No, I did, but you kind of crushed me with that stuff. Last question, if no one else is. You know, in The Shining, or maybe you don't know, how Danny Torrance, he's kind of he's talking to, if you haven't seen the spoilers, he's talking to himself that,
Red
yeah,
Room?
his older self. Black Henry sees himself. Is he able to communicate with himself the way Danny is with that kind of Shining?
No. Henry Deaver has no supernatural abilities really, other than like a crazy sensitivity to that sound. So if anybody could be able to do that, it would be Jane Levy's character, given that she is a Torrance.
Right.
She is the niece of Jack Torrance.
But she's kind of bitter for not having had those kinds of experiences a little bit.
Yeah, but now she's killing motherfuckers, and so
She did a pretty good job.
yeah. Here's Jane.
By the way, this is the weirdest law and order situation in this town where they're like, yeah, you're fine, get out of here. But we got a problem with. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
it's so weird.
The initial idea had been that Castle Rock was an unincorporated town. Like, so much bad shit happened, so many people left, that the town had voted to disincorporate, which meant you had no services in the town. You had to count on the state police to come. You had to count on, like, federal fucking, like, disaster relief to put out a fire. And so it was a bit lawless. Like, you could come to Castle Rock and commit a murder, and nobody would be there to catch you because there's no cops anywhere.
Also, they fail to suspect the people that are right in front of them so frequently.
Well, because Pangborn isn't a cop anymore.
Let's talk to the psychic.
Yeah. Nah.
It's your partner. No.
All right, man. Would
Thanks.
you like tickets to museum time?
Heck yeah.
All right, man. Thank you. All right, this is the last question that will get tickets, but I will keep answering questions until you motherfuckers get sleepy. So I got no place else to go. I mean, I do, but
So first of all, Mark, I loved your episode. Thought it was really creepy and
Thank you.
weird, and you locked dude in a box, and I was kind of weirded out. He trusted the other black guy who, yeah.
skin phone ain't kinfolk, man.
My question is more you being in the story room. What's up with this guy breaking into all of these houses? You know, it's like you're the only black guy in the whole town, and you keep like just walking into people's homes. Did you tell them that might not be a cool thing for him to do, or like did they consult you on this?
Did they consult me on the breaking and entering aspect of the show? No, and it like honestly, it hadn't occurred to me how much breaking and entering Henry does until you mentioned it right now. And if I had twigged to that, I'd be like, hey guys, maybe let's not have the black dude keep breaking into fucking people's houses.
You would think he would know better,
Well, he's also a lawyer, so he's like, I got the law on my side.
but he doesn't.
He doesn't at all. He doesn't at all. Then again, he's breaking into a blind lady's house, so maybe she just wouldn't know.
But he
that
breaks into the bed and breakfast, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on?
Well, by that point, he's mostly crazy.
Well, it's the same house, but it's new owners.
Yeah, maybe just
So
confused.
he only broke into the one house. He just broke into it twice with two different owners. Did he break into more houses?
All right, the fucking weird ass forest house.
Yeah, no, he was.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
a lot of B&E, yeah.
Yeah, damn,
I'm like,
Henry.
you could get shot out in the middle of Maine.
Yes. We should have tracked that closer. I feel. We should have put somebody on B&E duty, just fucking counting them off. Like, oh shit, maybe Henry should maybe not break into this guy's house and knock on a door.
It was simple.
Yeah. He knocked, just
I
nobody
just finished
answered.
it this morning, and I was just like,
Damn, son. Just ring a bell.
right.
I,
Great show.
Thank you.
Loved it. Did the bell in the ear thing have anything to do with Tommy knockers? You were talking about rights that you guys had access to.
No, I don't think we ever thought about Tommy knockers. We were just looking for a way to tie Henry being in that prison and Henry's inciting incident for beginning to doubt his own mind and beginning to open himself up to the idea of the supernatural. And so the gunshot in the ear and the tinnitus and the schisma and all of those things began to be the same kind of thread, the same kind of throw. Like we could freight that with as much story as we wanted to, and then eventually, hopefully, pay it off in a way that made it make sense from the beginning.
All right.
hilarious. I know. I tell the best boring anecdotes.
Thank you.
Ooh, you want tickets? Come get your tickets. Hoorah.
All right, how are you?
Hey!
Number one, I just want to mirror what Marie said. Thank you so much. Filter is fantastic. The tension ramps up. I mean, when Henry comes in, meets Odin and Willie in the woods, the tension just keeps building to the end of that episode, which takes you right into the Queen. And I don't think you earn the Queen without that tension rising. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Number one, who kills Odin? Was it Willie? Was
It's
it
Willie.
Molly?
It's Willie.
Okay.
Willie, because Willie was going to be purified, he was going to be cleansed and ready for the coming schismathon or whatever, and he ultimately said, fuck that, that sounds like an awful idea, to like burn my eardrums out. So no, deaf dude in the forest, I'm not gonna do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, the most amazing, like I was on set for that part of it. I flew out to, we shot in Massachusetts, doubling for Maine, and we shot that at, since it's night and you need as much night as you can, we got to the location like 7 o'clock at night and we shot until 4 a.m. in the morning. And the actor, C.J. Jones, who played Odin, had the flu and is for real deaf, like he's hard of hearing. Like, so everything that he's learning through an interpreter, he's learning through reading. The directorial advice had to go through an interpreter. And so it was the longest, most wonderful process because he's also a great actor and super open to things. But the weirdest thing was that Kieran Culkin, who's playing Willie, was memorizing, he had the fucking monologue, like he's doing all the fucking speaking. But we had to make sure that he was in time with the signage. Otherwise, because we were very conscious that there are going to be deaf people watching this show. And if he is faster than CJ signing, it's gonna ruin everything. So we just kept that, stop, dude, you're speaking too fast. He can't sign fast enough. And then translating all of this through an interpreter. And I never felt as guilty about writing exterior woods night. And like, I'm there, and it's fucking 40 degrees in the woods, and I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry. This could have been exterior woods day. This could have been interior McDonald's, and we all could have been having fucking McNuggets and talking about the schisma, but we're here in the fucking woods, and it's my bad. And they're like, no, it's all good, man. We get paid a lot to be out here. And night shoots are like time and a half, so thanks, buddy. Exterior night is buying Christmas presents for my children.
As a location person that worked in Boston, I hear you. It's rough out there.
It was no joke. And we also stumbled into like a hive of bees.
Oh, Jesus.
Who were angry because it was October, so like it was about to go from fall to winter, and they were furious, and we're just tromping through the fucking woods. And suddenly you see like 8 crew dudes ripping their shirts off, running through the woods screaming, because we stepped on beehives, and they got fucking bit real bad, and one dude had to go to the hospital because this motherfucker said exterior woods. So I'm sorry, Chad, for what happened to you in the woods that day. My bad.
Workman's comp.
Workman's comp.
Second question. If you got the call to be showrunner of season 2, what would you like to see happen?
If I get, that's a lot of money. If I got the call to be showrunner for season 2, which will not happen because they have a showrunner for season 2, and they've already started working, and I'm not in it. No, it's not their fault at all. Honestly, it's all my fault.
Treadstone.
That's the problem.
Multiple countries.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that the scheduling did not work out in my favor, and they were starting the Castle Rock season 2 room yesterday, and I'm on Treadstone for another 2 months, and so those particular gears couldn't mesh. So sadly, will not be there for season 2. But if I was doing season 2, I think vampires.
All right.
Yeah, I think Salem's Lot. I think you lean heavy on Salem's Lot.
They teased it.
They do tease it. And there's also this idea of kind of warring mythologies to a certain degree, because another thing we discovered in the research for season 1 was that Maine is home to an inordinate number of Somali immigrants. Like refugees just get like landed in Maine. And so there are these towns that have never, again, not the lily whitest towns ever anymore, because suddenly there's this entire community of people from someplace wildly exotic and totally different. And so how do the comparative mythologies of northeastern Maine butt up against the comparative mythologies of Africa? And I think that kind of cultural clash could be fascinating.
Spin-off.
Vampires. Thank you. I have no tickets for you, though.
Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, man, how you doing?
Good, I'm good. It's first time here, so it's pretty...
Yeah. Are you Ed Sheeran trying to cover your accent?
Oh, my God, no. But I get that a lot, and I'm
I
like...
see why.
And
Because
I'm
you're
like,
Ed Sheeran.
I mean, that's cool. I wish ladies would think that, but that's not what anyway, back to Castle Rock. So 2 questions. First thing is, all of what we discussed about the kid, right? In the last episode, there are 2 visual cues that kind of threw me off. One is where they're in the woods and you see that demon face kind of go on.
The demon face.
Yeah. And the second was when he smiles at the end, where we have that pan on long lens and he smiles. Was that just meant to be a trolling device, or is that meant to second guess us, or what's behind it, man?
Well, the demon face is ultimately there. I believe that it's what Henry sees that lets him justify putting that kid in the cage. Henry now believes that this guy's monstrous. He now believes that he's an agent of evil. Henry is at the end of his rope. He's at the frayed tether of his reality and his grip on what's happening in the real world versus whatever other fucked up world. And he sees this vision of horror, and that is what lets him sleep at night knowing that kid is in a cage. And I think the smile is a little bit of a troll. Not so much of a troll as just a throw forward to a story that you, sadly, will never get to see until like season 4, where we go back to Castle Rock and we go back to Shawshank, and then Skarsgård is done being a movie star and wants to do TV again, and it was like, hey, motherfuckers, I'm back.
So it was a demon face, not an old man face? It looked a little bit to me like an old man.
Yeah,
like
no,
a very,
exactly.
very old man.
Like
an ageless stranger or something.
Like a wraith. I saw it as demon face. Old man face. I mean, old men are
Creepy
scary.
face.
Totally.
Fair.
I mean, Jesus. Yeah, that's my interpretation of it.
Okay, cool.
That I believe was the intention behind it. Right. And yeah, the last little smile is evil is still down here, and evil has the best time, even in a cage.
Cool. And my second question is follow up to Jason's. Since you can't be back for season 2, if you were the showrunner for season 3, what would you want to do then?
Season 3 of Castle Rock? Maximum fucking overdrive. Yes.
That'd be awesome.
Intelligent trucks. Trucks.
All right, thanks.
Mother truckers.
With actual Amelia.
Yes, we'll get Emilio out of retirement.
Good evening. My name's Michael.
Hi, Mike.
Hi. Since we now live in a world where more toys are going into the same toy chest, and like more properties are able to play with more things, and more licenses are all becoming one. Creating this show, do you leave certain things open because maybe in the future, hey, there are talks that we don't have this license, because you hinted about it earlier tonight, certain things were shut down because you don't have the rights to it. But do you guys know, as you're creating the show, that there are talks, or there might be negotiations, or companies might be coming together where in the future, yes, you will have those rights and you will be able to tell those stories. So from a writer's standpoint, do you leave things a little more open-ended because you know certain things, or that's just kind of how the cookies crumble?
It's a little bit of how the cookies crumble. To the best of my knowledge, Warner Brothers TV was the entity that was the rights holder for most of that stuff. And Warner Brothers, I don't think is going anywhere. That said, they could buy another company that has other shit that's lying around.
Yeah.
But I think going into it, it's less a matter of like leaving shit for the future and more what can be the best version of the story for today. And these are the pieces we have to play with right now. Let's tell the best fucking story we can with these pieces. And if we get to do more later, then great, we'll find new pieces. Or if somebody comes to us and says, oh yeah, by the way, if you wanted the rights to Creepshow, you could have Creepshow also. It's like, that'd be amazing, thank you. That's now like, fucking yes, please, we'll do all of it. But we can't ever really bank on having more than we have when we start and leaving too much in the tank for the next season, because you want to leave it all in the field if you can.
So off the success off season 1 and you guys are going for season 2, do you guys get a little bit more juice or pull to say like, hey, we should go fight for this? Without getting in trouble.
I mean, I can say with no fear of reprisal, because they can't not hire me because I'm already not hired. I think they have juice because it did well. You know, I think that Hulu is behind it, Bad Robot's behind it, Warner Brothers TV is behind it. They want the best version of a season 2 they can have. But I don't think that there's been a request made to go out and get something that they don't already have or that they wanted. But that said, you know, that's, again, the 800-pound gorilla of JJ is, hey man, you know what would really be great? Can you get us the rights to this? It's like, fucking get us the rights to Walking Dead. See what you can do. And he can try and see what happens. But I don't know if there's a golden snitch out there that they really want to get their hands on.
All right, I just want to see if we can get a little...
Harry Potter, though. Warner Brothers owns Harry Potter, man.
Well, you know, if you get enough toys to play together. I was always a boy who had a bunch of toys, and my friend had a bunch of toys, and we played together. And you have Power Rangers, and I have Ninja Turtles, and now let's bring those together and have fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would if we were gonna do that, I would pitch them on like Castle Rock season 3 : Arkham Asylum. Cause why the fuck not?
Right?
It's never gonna happen.
Walk me through that real quick.
Warner Brothers also owns DC.
Well, I know, no, but what's happening in Arkham? Who's there?
Ooh.
Is it the kid? Like, has he been transferred somehow from Shawshank to Arkham?
Well, I think.
And then there's like an infiltrated rescue mission. Okay, and which Harley?
I think Jackie Torrance and Harley Quinn.
Yes.
Right?
Into it.
Fucking thrill kill cult
Ship
right
it.
there. Boom. But it's never gonna happen. But it'd be fun to dream.
Always fun to dream. Thank you so much for tonight. This was
Thank
awesome.
you, Michael. Appreciate it.
First, I'm gonna do my impression of the kid just real quick.
Yeah. I still never quite understood why he's got a hunch.
We have to go to the woods, Sheriff. You were happier.
Listen.
I figured it was because he's been leaning up against like a cell gate all his life. I guess that was kind of his choice, maybe. But yeah, I did notice like just the entire time he's just like this.
First thing I want to say, Nate, is those pants are amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
I was
you,
just
Target.
thinking that.
Right?
Those pants are awesome.
Target.
Good job, man.
Thank you.
All right, what can I answer you for?
Well, first I wanted to comment on the fact that like you were questioning whether or not you got you succeeded in conveying the feel of Stephen King, and I think for me, from what I've been reading, I've been like in my first year of Stephen King binging, reading all the hits and stuff. The thing about Stephen King is it's not the horror of what you understand, it's the horror of what you don't understand. And putting you in an experience that you're not necessarily used to and that you don't have all the answers for, and it's the horror of the experience of that. And I think that in terms of Castle Rock, like, I don't think a lot of people really got the cyclical kind of aspect of where Henry ends up in the place of the warden, where he sees something in the kid that he's not quite sure is real, but he has enough doubt in his mind to keep him in a prison for 27 years. And then Henry has that same moment at the end where he has to make that same call. Do I kill this kid, or in my mind, how much doubt is reasonable to keep him alive? So I think in the sense of like, yeah, the end has so many more questions that aren't answered. I think a lot of people get frustrated when the biggest questions aren't answered and not the little questions along the way that mean more towards, I think, the big picture. And that's what I think succeeded in the show. So that was my interpretation of that. My question, though, is what was your favorite Easter egg that got pitched in the writing room, whether or not it got, in the final cut or not? But like, what was the favorite thing, like reference that was made that was like, okay, that has to be in there?
I mean, my dead Carrie pitch was my favorite. I think that another thing we wanted to do was, rather than have Jackie Torrance be Jack Torrance's niece.
Was she going to be female Jack Torrance?
She was going to be female Jack Torrance.
I thought so.
And this part of the story was going to be female Jack Torrance falling in love with Henry's son Wendell as
Caught
the
that
sort
too.
of reincarnated Wendy. So it was Jack and Wendy, and what happens when Jack and Wendy get together in this particular thing.
They make a fucked up kid.
Yeah, like just awful shit happens. But we once we backed away from the reincarnation version and just leaned into the niece uncle relationship, and then Wendell, we never really got the romance between the two of them, so that really never took. But I kind of love that idea of planting the seeds for what would be eventually The Shining, kind of gender swapped going forward.
That was definitely what I guessed was going, like that's where it was going, but yeah, it obviously went where it went, and she still has that, Shining connection, even though it's the movie version and not the book version, because she says it's an axe and not the roque mallet, like in the book, but I'm just being picky. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I want to ask Roth, what is your favorite Easter egg of the season that you noticed?
I don't know. That's a
Because I have to rewatch it and see all the ones that I missed for sure, but
that's a really good question. Let me think about it for a minute. I don't know, because I think it's not the kind of thing that needs them. You know what I mean?
Of course,
I think the story is so strong unto itself. They're fun though, and they're fun to help kind of give you theories. Or that's the fun thing about being online with shows like this, is that you can riff on different theories. So I think it's more like who and what is the kid. Wasn't so much an Easter egg, but that was my favorite through line.
the biggest kind of hanging thread that you wanted answered.
Yeah, because at every moment it was bringing you to the question of what you perceive to be evil may not be evil, but it also may be creating evil. Like even little baby Reverend Deaver, is he evil? Was he born evil? Or is the woman that's trying to strangle a baby evil?
I thought maybe their baby got pet cemeteried.
Yeah, right. Very much Gage Pet Cemetery. But that question to me was the most interesting question the whole time. Yeah. And then ultimately you're like, I guess everybody's evil and that's why he's laughing.
I mean, that
the whole world
scene,
should just get fucked.
Yeah.
That scene in the jail was pretty messed up. Like,
yeah.
That was, where they just start killing each other. Yeah.
And we also there was an idea that the building that Molly's refurbishing, it was supposed to be an old mill, and we wanted it to be a paper mill, so that the machine from the thresher or whatever,
The Wrangler, yeah.
was sort of in the basement of that machine.
That's
kind
cool.
of like you would just kind of take a little tour when the kid was living there, like you'd take a little basement tour and see, oh, giant murder machine, and then that kind of would be it.
Well, really cool. Fun. Thank you.
Yay. All right. I think we're gonna do two more.
All right. My name is Danny. This is my first time. This isn't Castle Rock related, but I just kind of wanted to pick your brain as, you know, a fellow fan of this stuff. Sorry. I was always wondering, like, if you were going to be in charge of, say, a Netflix show centered around the character Blade, how would you play that story out for the season, and what would be your list of issues for your deep cuts?
Well, here's what I'll say. Nobody's gonna hire me to make a Blade show. I wish they would. That'd be great, because I think that right now you can have a really interesting conversation using Blade to talk about things like urban violence, things like race, because a big part of the whole Daywalker idea. Here's a guy caught between two worlds. Here's a guy who is almost by definition biracial in a way. And so being able to talk about not belonging to either world, but being part of both, and being a little bit ostracized, but feeling you belong to each one, I think is a thing you can talk about with Blade that you can't talk about with any other Marvel hero, really. I think there's always the kind of disease/drug element to just vampirism. I mean, it's all about fucking blood, and that's just built into what that is. It's a metaphor for sex.
Right.
But I think that all of those things getting to ride in a show about fucking killing vampires by a vampire, you know, vamp on vamp crime, is actually kind of heady and wonderful, and the fact that they don't have one yet is kind of boggling. As for like deep cut issues, I was never like the deepest Blade reader. So I, aside from finding a real good way to do Deacon Frost, because the fucking Stephen whatever his name was, that version,
right.
Dorf,
yeah.
Dorf on Vamps, not so cool. But I think that making that character a for real legit threat, and finding a way to talk about things like the attraction of the vampire lifestyle, you know, without anybody being sparkly and without it being some weird fucking like May, December 2049 version of a relationship. Like, I think you can talk about the attractiveness of that with a character like Deacon Frost and how Blade resists that at every turn, but is still kind of falling prey to all of the jewels and gems of that world. It's kind of fun.
And then, like, just as an aside, like, would like while you're having all this, would Blade sort of like be sort of like that stick out character like everybody knows, or would you sort of like follow this arc where he's just coming up and it's like this whole world is like it's ruled by the vampires basically, but you have this little, like, I'm trying to like kind of like compare it to this idea where it's sort of like in the middle of things, the whole world's going to shit, but you have this one character that's still kind of a part of that, but at a certain point kind of turns and goes like, yeah, no, I'm like against this. Like, how would you make that turn, I guess?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't do an origin story, because origin stories are almost always the least interesting version of that character. Right. It's like, look, you got a thing, and now you're special. Like, I get it. I know how that works. But I think there's a way to do sort of a Yojimbo thing there.
Right on, okay.
There's a way to have Blade kind of a drifter to a certain degree, like even still spoken of in legend and happenstance and whatever, but he stumbles upon this particular conflict between either these two different vampire clans or a vampire clan and the human clan, and he's torn between which one of them is right, which one of them is wrong, not realizing or eventually realizing that it's a symbiotic relationship. Without one, you can't have the other, and they both need to find a way to harmonize, and maybe Blade is the one who has to pay the ultimate price for building that balance.
Right on.
Maybe, I don't fucking know.
I think it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to a Blade series.
Dear Netflix.
Isn't the whole joke about Netflix right now, though, like, Netflix, what are we greenlighting?
I mean, I wish, except every time I go there, it's like, hey, I got a show, not for you. It's all right, I'll get them.
Well, I just have one question for you, Mark. You talked about the parallel universes in this series, Castle Rock. So that really leaves me only one question, and that which of Stephen King's stories took place in Black Henry's universe and which took place in White Henry's universe?
Oh, damn.
You've split the canon down the center by introducing two universes, so that kind of throws the question out there.
Well, Needful Things took place in Henry I's universe, right? Because there's a clip in the newspaper. Dolores Claiborne took place in White Henry's universe.
The other one.
All right. Although she didn't kill her husband, she opened up a shop. Or both.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
Cujo took place.
Cujo is in this one.
Yeah.
He's in Black Henry's universe.
Black Henry's universe, right.
And
Frank Dodd is in
the
Black
body
Henry's
is there.
Right.
Pet Cemetery. Well,
Pet
they allude
Sematary.
to it, but did they confirm? Do you feel like
Did they?
Did they
You think so?
confirm? I'm like asking you, the guys right here.
All right.
But-
Good question.
You have a way better handle on this.
I'm like, hang on, hold my beer.
And I'm just like, yes, Roth. Which universe is it in?
What else is
I don't know.
Derry's circled, but we don't know. The balloons were in White Henry's universe, so I feel like that's more of a Pennywise situation we have going there. I'm unclear.
I mean, all of that sounds great. I believe all of it. That is, yeah, I got no answer to that. I just don't. Like that would, we had never really discussed like which takes place in which because we were never going to fundamentally spend a ton of time in the other universe. So like grinding out the totality of that universe.
Right.
The Dead Zone takes place in.
Yes. Yeah.
You right? Yeah. That
It
takes
does.
place definitely. Exactly, and he killed himself, and there's
Yeah.
the whole she sleeps like a baby because.
We wanted to have a whole thing where we wanted, like, one of the JJ calls was to see if we can get Martin Sheen to come back and do like a campaign ad as the president.
There you go.
But yeah, we never got that.
No, didn't get it.
Damn. That'd
I just and the only theory I have about why White Henry is quote unquote so evil. I mean, he doesn't age in this universe because time affects him differently. I just think it's the Langoliers trying to catch up to him.
Damn. All right,
That's
man.
just me.
You fucking win. I don't have any more tickets to give you.
I'm good.
Half a beer?
Yes. Would you like a beer? Listen, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, have you had a good time tonight? I would have been up here all by my lonesome trying to make you people fucking laugh if it wasn't for Roth Cornet, who came to help me talk about this thing that is so hard to talk about. So thank you, Roth.
Thank you. This has been an honor.
For devoting a night out of your busy life, out of your post-Venom world, to come and talk about Castle Rock with me. And where can people find you on the internet?
I'm at Roth Cornet on the things. I'm on Screen Junkies and Screen Junkies. Oh, really? You like honest trailers? I don't make them, but I know the people who do. And it's been an honor and a pleasure. Mark is like, you're amazing. You just honestly, truly, yeah. You're like the aspirational story. Success story.
Aspire to more.
Yeah, you got a Netflix series. It's Blade.
I know you just
found
you
out.
wait. I know it's gonna totally fucking happen, you guys. That is all that we have tonight for the inaugural episode of Blackman Beyond. I do not know when Kevin is back in town, so I do not know when we're gonna do a full-on, for real, Fat Man Beyond again. But I'm hoping before October is out, because it would be a shame to not do one of these before Halloween. Maybe we'll do a costume contest. Ooh. Lando. This deal's getting worse all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. Come back next time, same fat channel, smodcast.com or youtube.com/Kevin Smith. Good night, everybody.